Greetings, fellow dungeon delvers, and welcome to Dorans and Dragons, where we work together to come up with Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition builds for your favorite League of Legends champions. Today we're building Zoe, the Aspect of Twilight. One of our viewers from Zoe's build stream, Gabriel, summed up her lore best. Little girl puts demons to sleep. More news at 9. But seriously, Zoe is the current host of the Aspect of Twilight, which chose her for her carefree exuberance and sheer willpower to overcome any peril that faced her. Her origin story is skipping school and laughing in the face of the teachers who chased after her. They chase her to the edge of a cliff, and the Aspect of Twilight opens a portal for her, asking if she wants to see the universe. She leaps backwards off the cliff right into it and explored the edges of reality. When she finally returned, her transcendence allowed her to explore time in a non-linear way, allowing her to catch up on all the events she had missed on her universal tour. Her journey has brought her into contact with many powerful beings, including Aurelian's soul, the celestial dragon. A soul actively despises the aspects, Zoe included. She heard his grievances though, and felt bad for the poor space doggy, and attempts to build a friendship with him, soothing millennia-old wounds. The jury is still out on whether Zoe is a force for good, or just a force of chaos, so we'll just have to wait and see for now. Before we get started with the build, go ahead and like the video and hit that subscribe button so you're always notified when we release our builds. We'd like to take a minute and thank our awesome patrons over on Patreon who support us every month. Thanks for helping us keep the lights on and the sparkles sparkling. If you like our videos and want to support the channel, come join us over on Patreon today for just $1 to get access to our awesome Discord community where we talk League and D&D all day long. Alright, now let's get into it. Here's a quick preview of the build. For race, we're going with Variant Human. Per usual, our stats are going to be determined using the standard array. For our stat priorities, we're going to max Charisma and dump Intelligence. We do have a multi-class requirement of 13 in Charisma. Our leveling path is going to be levels 1 through 4 in Sorcerer. We'll take a quick 2-level dip into Warlock, and then finish out the build as a Sorcerer. Zoe's passive, More Sparkles, is going to be Spell Bombardment. Our Q, Paddle Star, is going to come from Eldritch Blast. Her W, Spell Thief, comes from Wild Surge and Magic Missile. Our E, Sleepy Trouble Bubble, will come from Sleep. And finally we get our ultimate, Portal Jump, from Arcane Gate. For race, we're going with a staple of the channel with Variant Human. Variant Humans gain a +1 to 2 ability scores. We'll take Charisma and Dexterity. We'll also pick up a skill proficiency in Acrobatics, so we can do a flip through our portal for funsies. And finally, we'll get the important part of Variant Humans, the free feat. There's a lot of Zoe's kit that's obnoxious, but the insane range on her Q is definitely up there. We'll capitalize on that early with the Spell Sniper feat. We're going to learn a cantrip with a spell attack roll. We'll grab Eldritch Blast for now, and hope our DM will let us swap it out for Firebolt later as a pseudo-ignite when we get levels in Warlock. Eldritch Blast is going to let us make a spell attack roll, and deal 1d10 force damage if we're successful. Also, Spell Sniper is going to let any spells requiring an attack roll get double range, and ignore 1/2 and 3/4 cover. Spoiler alert, our Q is going to be able to land from 1200 feet away, which is obviously completely unnecessary, but hey, so is this champion. For background, we're going with the Far Traveler for obvious reasons. On the off chance those reasons aren't obvious, it's because she's explored planes beyond our comprehension, is now schlepping it up with whatever group you've cobbled together to knock out a dragon and explore its dungeon. We're going to pick up proficiency in Insight and Perception and the All Eyes on You feature. Basically, your heterochromia and just general insanity is going to mark you as special, and everyone is going to want to talk to you and ask the same dumb question about your eyes. But hey, you can leverage that into getting places you might not have been able to before, so there's that. For stats, we're going to find the balance Riot actively ignores when it comes to this champion with a standard array. Roll if you want to, just keep at least a 13 in Charisma for multi-classing purposes. Speaking of Charisma, we're going to max this for her whimsical nature and the downright terrifying prospect of facing her once your mid laner inted their butt off for the first 10 minutes. We'll take Dexterity after that. She's nimble and has the active spirit of youth. Wisdom will be next for her experience and knowledge gained over the course of her dimensional travel. Then we'll get Constitution for a little help keeping our Arcane Gate active if we take damage somehow. We'll have an average strength and dump intelligence because Slick Sick asked me to, I mean, because she's not the brightest bulb in the shed. Alrighty, since Zoe doesn't really require any equipment, we'll jump right into the class level breakdown with some levels in Sorcerer. Sorcerers have a d6 hit die and give us proficiency with a bunch of weapons and 2 skills. We'll choose Intimidation for that I'm super fed and I'm gonna one-shot your ADC energy, and Arcana for the magical knowledge she'll be using to do that. First level sorcerers have a Sorceress Origin, that is the source of their power. With the Aspect of Twilight's power and Zoe's crazy nature combined, we're going with the Wild Magic Origin. This is going to give us 2 very cool features, Wild Magic Surge and Tides of Chaos. Wild Magic Surge is going to emulate Zoe's W, delivering cool abilities to us randomly just like the minions with balloons do. Anytime you cast a first level spell or higher, your DM can have you roll a d20, and if you nat 1, you have to roll on the Wild Magic Surge table, which is a d100 chart with all kinds of cool and possibly damaging effects. Now this is rules as written, but what I prefer as a DM is to factor in that character's emotional state and any external compounding factors, and skip the d20 and just have them roll on the Wild Magic Surge table when the situation warrants it. Obviously get permission from your player before you go this route, but they're most likely going to be excited for something like that because no one picks this subclass wanting to roll less on this super fun table. Now Tides of Chaos is going to let us choose one attack, check, or save we make, and give ourselves advantage once per rest. This is cool enough, but added on top of that, anytime you roll on the Wild Magic Surge table, you regain the use of this ability. And finally, we're going to pick up Zoe's W passive and her E from our first level spells. Those cool little magical orbs on her W is going to be Magic Missile. We create 3 little motes of magic and slam them into a creature within 120 feet, dealing 1d4 plus 1 force damage per mote. And then we'll get her E with the Sleep spell. Sleep is going to let you roll 5d8 to generate a pool of hit points you can use to affect creatures in the 20-foot sphere of the spell you cast. This pool of hit points starts with the lowest hit point creature and moves on, draining the pool for a matching amount of their current hit points. Each creature affected by this spell falls unconscious until they take damage or someone wakes them up. Taking a crack in the face with one of her Qs, or one of your teammates bashing their skull in will definitely do the job. Second level sorcerers gain Font of Magic, giving us a pool of sorcery points to use. Right now these points can only be used as a way to exchange and recharge our spell slots, but starting next level they'll power our meta magic options. Speaking of meta magic, level 3 sorcerers gain their meta magic options, which are basically just cool ways to spend sorcery points and augment our spells in certain ways. We have 3 important options to cover here. Distance spell is going to give us the ability to spend a sorcery point to double the range of any spell we cast, which is going to help us reach that 1200 foot range point once we take 2 levels in Warlock. Seeking spell is going to let us get a do-over if we try to snipe that ADC with our Q and miss, letting us spend 2 sorcery points to reroll the d20. And finally, we'll take Empowered spell to act as the damage amplification our E gives. You spend 1 sorcery point and get to reroll any of the damage die for a spell up to your charisma mod. So if you have a 16 in charisma, you can reroll 3 of them. 4th level sorcerers gain the first ability score improvement of the build. As always, we're going to break them all down here so you can pick and choose as you'd like along the journey. These are going to be fairly boring compared to the unholy abomination of feats we made Pantheon as last night. At Sorcerer 4 and 8, we're going to bump our Charisma 2 points each, maxing at Sorcerer 8. At Sorcerer 12, we only need 1 point to round off our Dexterity, so we'll do it with the Athlete feat, giving us a +1 to Dex and a few minor features, like standing from prone only costing 5 movement speed, no extra movement speed from climbing, and we can do running jumps after 5 feet of movement instead of 10. And finally at Sorcerer 16, we'll take a +2 to Dexterity. Alrighty, getting our first ASI is a great jump off point for casters, so we'll take a quick detour over to Warlock for a few levels. Warlocks have a d8 hit die and give us proficiency with light armor and simple weapons. They also choose an otherworldly patron to gain their powers from. We're going to flavor the Aspect of Twilight as an Archfey, giving us an expanded spell list and Fey Presence. Fey Presence is going to be the tongue sticking out face we do after we dive through our ultimate. As an action, you can force all creatures within 10 feet to make a wisdom save or be charmed or frightened by you until the end of your next turn. Spoiler alert, anytime Zoe's fed and you see her dumb face pop through a portal next to you, you're definitely going to be frightened for a second before you play Gray Screen Simulator for the next 40 seconds. Also, we'll get packed spell slots, which recharge on a short rest. Guess what those are? You guessed it. Free sorcery point generators. Yay! Second level warlocks gain their Eldritch Invocations, which are basically just passive abilities that make up for the generally abysmal pack slot system. Now, since we're sword locking it up here, the pack slot system isn't actually that bad, but I digress. We're going with Eldritch Spear first, which is going to set our base range of Eldritch Blast to 300 feet. So, 300 feet is a base, then Spell Sniper doubles that up to 600, with Distance Spell doubling it again to 1200 feet. Then Agonizing Blast is going to add on the oomph, giving us our Charisma modifier and bonus force damage to each bolt that hits. And with that accomplished, we'll bounce back over to Sorcerer. 6th level Wild Magic Sorcerers gain Bend Luck, letting us use our reaction anytime a creature makes an attack, check, or save. You can then spend 2 sorcery points to roll a d4 and add it or subtract it from the creature's roll. So if you have an enemy who just barely landed an attack on your friend, just bend it down and have that attack whiff instead. Or if your friend was so close to dodging that fireball but failed, give them a gentle nudge to make it out of the way instead. Level 11 sorcerers learn 6th level spells. We're going to gain Zoe's ultimate with Arcane Gate. As an action, you pick 2 points within 500 feet of each other and generate portals over them. You can walk back and forth through them as if they were 2 adjacent points. For flavor, ask your DM to let you wind up your Eldritch Blast, then run through the portal and send it the long way, crashing into your target like a freight train. 14th level Wild Magic Sorcerers get Controlled Chaos, giving us advantage on the Wild Magic Surge table by letting us roll twice and choosing between our 2 options, which is honestly pretty awesome and one of the best features this subclass gets. And finally, we'll pick up our passive with Spell Bombardment. Anytime you roll max damage on one of your damage die rolls, you can take one of those die and re-roll it, adding that damage to the total damage of your spell. Alright, now that we've completed the build, let's see how we did. First, the good. This build has the one-shot potential, especially if you take Quicken Spell and start unleashing 8 Qs in a single round. We also have the whimsy with our Fey Presence and Sleepy Trouble Bubble. And lest we forget, we have our Arcane Gate shenanigans to make the poor squishies in the back weep. Now the bad. The main bad we have with this build is the same one you have with Zoe in-game. Super squishy and will most likely pop if anyone gets in close for too long. Luckily, we have plenty of means of escaping, including a plethora of teleportation spells we can take on top of the ones we already have. So, what'd you think? I've included a link to this build via D&D Beyond in the description below, as well as Amazon links to the books used in the build. If you enjoy this type of content, please consider supporting us on Patreon. We have a few awesome rewards, and you get access to our great Discord community. We plan on churning out one League Champion build every week. Thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll catch you on the Rift, or in the Forgotten Realms.